So you want to own a haunted house. You think it's just fog rolling across your parking lot, a line stretching around the building, teenagers screaming into the October night, and you, the mastermind, collecting cash from every single one of them. It looks like the easiest money in America. Rent a scary building, hire some actors, charge $30 a head. It is not that simple. 60% of haunted houses in the US don't survive past their third year, and the reason why has almost nothing to do with how scary you are. Building one starts cheap or starts brutal depending on how patient you are. On the low end, you're looking at $2,000 to $5,000. Reclaimed wood, thrift store props, a borrowed generator. That's basically a garage band haunted house. On the high end, Leonard Pickle says the average serious haunt costs about $250,000 to open, $30 to $40 a square foot just for the build-out, before you've paid a single actor. Randy Bates, who owns the Bates Motel outside Philadelphia, built his very first haunted house for around $25,000 back in the 90s. Today, his combo ticket, haunted house, hayride, and trail, pulls in 60,000 visitors a year. Same idea, wildly different bank account. The gap between those two numbers is basically the entire plot of this video. Here's what nobody puts on the listing. First, insurance. Bates pays about $50,000 a year because jump scares in the dark produce lawsuits the way candy corn produces cavities. Second, new scares every single year. Repeat customers won't pay to see last October's maze twice. Bates spends $200,000 to $300,000 annually just rebuilding sets, and that's before you count the $6,500 he spends on fake blood and makeup alone. Third, the building itself. Whether you own it or rent it, you're paying for it in January, March, and July, months when a haunted house earns exactly $0. Fourth, getting caught. Consultants like Pickle say some owners never even open because they skipped the fire marshal and got shut down for code violations before opening night. Add it up, and the cheap haunted house you saw online was never actually cheap. It was just cheap to look at. Revenue breaks into 4 layers, and each one exists to solve a problem the layer before it created. Layer 1, general admission, $25 to $35. This is the loss leader, the ticket that gets a body through the door. Layer 2, the fast pass, a VIP ticket, $50 to $60, that sells skip-the-line access. You're not paying for less fear, you're paying for less waiting. Layer 3, the bundle. Bates doesn't sell one attraction. He sells 3 stacked into a single $45 to $50 combo ticket. Same customer, same night, triple the spend. Layer 4, the off-season asset. Bates built an email list of 162,000 addresses. That list is worth more in March than his props are, because it's the one thing that still works when the fog machines are in storage.
Here's the reframe. The owner isn't really selling fear. The owner is selling access to the front of the line, to 3 attractions instead of 1, to a mailing list that still sells tickets when nothing else is open. Now the boring part. Bates runs 340 seasonal employees. That payroll alone is the single biggest line item on his books. Add security, marketing at $2 to $3 per visitor, insurance that never takes a month off, and prop maintenance that has to happen whether it rains or not. Total annual operating cost for a haunt his size, about $1.2 million. Due every year, rain or shine. Here's the part that breaks people's brains. A haunted house needs a big, cheap, ugly building, the kind nobody else wants. But it can only turn that building into money for about 4 to 8 weekends a year. That's roughly 5% of the calendar. The other 95%? You're still paying rent, insurance, and storage on a building that's making you nothing. And the real estate that used to make this math work, cheap downtown buildings, abandoned warehouses, mostly doesn't exist anymore. Washington, D.C. doesn't have a single haunted house. States like Ohio and Missouri have 3 times as many per capita as California, simply because the empty buildings are still there. So owners get squeezed into one of 2 traps: buy cheap land somewhere nobody wants to live and carry it all year for a 5% payoff, or rent short-term, strip mall style, and risk your landlord kicking you out the second a real year-round tenant shows up. Either way, the fault line is the same. Permanent costs, temporary income. Every haunted house in America is built on top of that math, whether the owner knows it or not. Ian Miller found that fault line the hard way. In 2010, he started a haunted house in Des Moines, Iowa called the Slaughterhouse as a side hustle. No investors, no cushion. He leased temporary space, season to season, the short-term trap. To survive, he collected free and cheap props wherever he could. Business partners came and went. Some years, he lived out of his car. On the worst nights, he slept inside his own haunted house because it was the only building he had access to. Twice, he had to close entirely and regroup. Then he landed the deal that changed everything: a permanent lease with a landlord willing to commit long-term. For the first time, Miller wasn't rebuilding from zero every October. He was reinvesting into the same walls year after year. Today, the slaughterhouse pulls in about 13,000 customers annually, putting it among the more established haunts in the country. Miller escaped the fault line the only way anyone does, by finally owning his square footage instead of renting his risk. You'd think the winner here is whoever builds the scariest maze. It's not. In Kansas City, the family behind Full Moon Productions bought up cheap real estate in a rundown neighborhood back in the 80s. Decades later, they still run their haunted houses there, but they also lease part of that same property to a barbecue restaurant and host festivals on it year-round. Bates does something similar. He runs a Christmas tree farm on his land in the off-season, and he's building a coupon platform for the entire haunted house industry, basically turning himself into the toll booth other haunts pay to reach customers. Notice what's happening? The people actually winning this industry aren't the best scare designers. They're the ones who quit treating the haunted house as the whole business and started treating it as one product sitting on top of land, data, and a brand that works 12 months a year. Take Bates's numbers and run 2 seasons side by side. Good year, 60,000 visitors, roughly $47 average ticket. That's about $2.8 million in revenue. Subtract his $1.2 million in costs, and you're left with around $1.6 million before he even pays himself. Bad year? 2 rained-out Saturdays in October, the 2 busiest nights of his entire year, and attendance drops 20% to around 48,000. Revenue falls to roughly $2.25 million. But the costs don't fall with it. Insurance is already paid. 340 employees are already scheduled. The $1.2 million is due regardless. Same building, same team, same haunted house. One bad weekend of weather, and take-home profit drops by over a third. That's not a business risk. That's the business. Owning a haunted house was never the business. Owning the ground it sits on for the other 11 months of the year was.